Back together again. All right, one loop of this village, and then it's go time. Dude at the front's leading us all out. All right, we're going right, loop, coming back through, go left. Bring me back. That guy in first is non-slip power. Couldn't get him. We'll call that a podium. Just couldn't bring him back, man. If I used all my gas to bring him back, probably would have finished 6, 7, 8. That's the best I could do. I had to accept my fate in that little group there and then just take them all out. I don't know about 5 square here. 5 square is not even on Zwift power, like I said, so MBD, MBD, MBD. Yeah, it looks like I take third on Zwift power. I mean, it should be at least a podium. Not much going on late night, like I said, which is kind of crappy. I wish there was some more action available. All right, let's take the 14, 15 Ks here. Oh, well, that did not go as I expected. I was hoping it was just gonna be a coffee ride till the end. But there were multiple attacks, again and again and again. More than I wanted. More than I wanted. Hold on, let me say hi. Oh, okay. But yeah, like I said, it didn't go as I expected. It was too many attacks. I was maybe 1 or 2 in the village area, but no. There was at least 2, 2.5, 3 attacks before we even got to the first village. You sons of bees. Seriously, like why? What was the point of that? It's just not necessary. Dude made a final push at the last village loop and he got away. Couldn't bring him back. Couldn't bring him back, bring him back. Like I said, if I was to bring him back with all my power, I would have had nothing left for the sprint, so I would have finished dead last of everybody. I think I'm racing a little smarter, like I knew I wasn't gonna get them, so I might as well save that energy and beat all the people that I was with still, right? That's what I'm gonna tell myself, and that's how I'm gonna sleep tonight, I'll tell you that much. Alright, that's it. That's all she wrote, boys and girls. You know the drill, you do you. You set your own goals, you smash them. You move the goalpost, and then you smash them again. You don't worry about dumb haters or those keyboard coaches, unless you're paying them. And don't forget the don't get dropped cycling rules. Rule number 1, have fun. Rule number 2, keep it spicy. And rule number 3, try not to get drizzy drops. Alright, boys and girls. Big shout outs to my new subs, old subs, and OG subs. You boys and girls are the greatest, helping create the best Zwift cycling community ever. Special shout outs to my buy me a coffee, pay for my funeral supporters. Fist bumps to you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. Woo! If you guys want a personalized shout out, feel free to buy me a coffee, pay for my funeral. Links down below in the description, alright? Woo! Alright. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell button, leave a couple of comments. Come follow me at Don't Get Dropped Cycling on Instagram. Strava's Zwift Power Profile, buy me a coffee, and try Zwift for 30 days for free. Links down below in the description. Woo-wee! Alright, boys and girls. Until next time, don't get dropped, alright? Take care, everybody. I didn't expect this little climb business thing going on here. What the hell was that?
If you haven't done it in training, you will not do it in a race.
Yeah.
It's that simple. No, you just got to put the hours in and then it all comes together on race day.
Right.
Well, you know what? It doesn't. It doesn't.
I'm going to say that today's guest is the world's most versatile professional endurance athlete. His name is Cam Wurf. This is a guy who has distinguished himself at the highest, most elite level in 3 distinct sports. First, in rowing, where he represented Australia in the 2004 Athens Olympics. But then he turns his sights on professional cycling and over the years becomes a super domestique for Team Sky and now Team Ineos. He's famous for not only leading Team Ineos to victory on the cobblestones of Paris-Roubaix last year, but celebrating that win by going out and running a half marathon right after the race. He can set bike course records at the world's most prestigious Ironmans, and he can even run a 2:45 marathon after a 2.4 mile swim and a 112 mile bike.
If I'm capable of dreaming something, then it's possible. An athlete can do anything. I don't really believe that you can dream something that isn't possible.
Cam doesn't ever seem to get tired. He absolutely loves training. He's always smiling. And I just got so many questions. Final note, we recorded this episode quite some time ago, all the way back in February. So since then, Cam has bookended an impressive slew of races for Ineos with a podium at Ironman Lanzarote. And it seems he's just getting warmed up. So strap in and let's do it. This is me and the great Cam Wurf. This episode is brought to you by Timeline Nutrition, which is this new skin health line of products. Check it out and get 10% off your first order.
Today, a couple of guys met us for a ride. One guy, Belgian guy, works at the Rafa shop. I can't remember his name, but I feel terrible because he rode against me in 2001 at the Junior Worlds. He was in the Belgian 4. And going into it, we'd done a couple of lead-up junior. We were the 2 top-ranked crews. Everyone was like, who's going to win? And we're in the semi-final, and we're on the start, and we're in Germany, and one of those random storms, like, they have those sirens on the end of lakes in Europe, and like they know that something's coming, and so they warn the siren, and it goes, and next thing, this thing just like rips through. There's whitecaps everywhere and stuff getting blown all over the place. One was coming, and our coach could see it. And he was trying to get my attention because I was in the stroke seat of the boat to like pretend I'd broken something in the boat to get a delay. And I was like, he's waving, I was like, he sort of ignored. Anyway, sure enough, the race started. We got about 100 meters and boom, this thing hit us. And we were all quite small, like 150-pound kids. And we're racing Romania, Belarus that were, 300-pound men, probably with fake passports. And sure enough, like they just sat back and leaned into it and just plowed through this storm and, made the final. We missed out by 1 spot. And the same thing happened to Belgium in the next heat. And, in the heat before, because they'd hit it towards the end of their race. And so we ended up both in the B final, but we beat them in the B final. And he reminded me of that, we should have been first and second that year. I was like, yeah, well, we were 7th and 8th.
So this Belgian guy who works at the Rafa shop, he used to row again.
Yeah.
Is that like the first time you've seen him in 25 years or whatever?
Yeah, it was 2001. It was 22 years ago.
Wow.
And not only that, but I'd done some efforts before he arrived. And I mean, they weren't hard. They were like some zone 3 just efforts. I was doing around 410 watts. And he said, how do you feel, at your age? Like he's obviously working. I'm still in different sports. And I said, you know what? It's funny. Like even when I was rowing and we'd get on the bike, like if you could do 400 watts for like 20 minutes at, 70 kilos, 150 pounds, that was a pretty solid effort. I said, well, mate, 22 years later, it still is. That feeling has not changed. And I said, I can't even believe I'm still doing it. But I am, and I apply myself the same way I did 22 years ago.
Right.
You know, I just love it. I love exercising.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you're, what are you, 39?
Yeah.
No, 39.
39.
Right. But you're still improving every year.
Yeah.
You had a couple, during COVID, you were sort of angled for a peak performance, but there were no races.
Yeah.
But you've bounced back and you put in your best Kona performance this past year. It just so happened to be an incredible field, and all kinds of havoc broke loose with, not just the Norwegians, but Sam Laidlow.
Yeah.
You improved on your bike course record by 3 seconds.
But he demolished me.
But, it was almost like I was watching the live stream and you were barely brought up in the whole conversation. It was insane.
Which is, I mean, that's how you want it. When I took the record, I took it off Norman Stadler, who had stopped racing, centuries ago. And Sam, what impressed me most was I was there and I was powerless to do anything about it. I was, in admiration and of what he did as much as everyone else watching. I think, I was really pleased for him. He's a lovely guy at the end of it all. And
that was his first Kona, right?
That was his first Kona.
And the Norwegians, their first Kona.
Yeah.
To come in their first time out. And basically rewrite the rule book
completely,
where there's all this lore about how you can't do that, right? Yeah. And they're just like, I don't care about that. Like, I'm just going to go in and crush, and they did.
Yeah.
How does that? I mean, for somebody who's been so enthusiastically pursuing a win at Kona for so long, does that now feel daunting? Like, it's definitely a seismic shift in where the sport is headed.
Yeah, I mean, not really. It's kind of getting towards the level I assumed, you'd want to get to, and I've been aiming to get to. And I thought about this on the drive out, like thinking back, through what I've done. And I've forgotten who it was you had on here, but it was a guy talking about Ironman Canada, and he didn't get to read his speech that he planned to read.
Gordo Byrne.
Gordo Byrne. Yeah. I listened to that. I was running in Maryland. I remember my wife's family's from over there. I was in the middle of nowhere, I had the podcast on. And I guess it sort of resonated with me because I've never feel like I've been able to empty the tank in an Ironman. And through a range of reasons. The first time I won one was in 17, and I'd qualified for Kona a few weeks before in the last qualifying race. And we'd already planned to do the Ironman Wales because it helped for the next Kona to qualify. So we bugger it. You may as well go anyway, just do some training anyway. Sure enough, it was a horrible day. I was miles in front of the bike. I was basically able to walk the run and win. And great. And then obviously came to Kona. That was when I first broke the bike course record and kind of established myself in the sport. 19, I won twice. The first one was in Port Macquarie, and it was the first time I could run properly. So I was running quite well, got nervous halfway through because I was running quicker than I've ever run. So I started eating too much. So then I had to slow down because I had stomach cramps, So that I still won, but it was nothing. Then I did Ironman Italy later that year, and I was ready for Kona, but it was 3 weeks before, and we basically did it to test a new bike. But I was sort of so far in front and felt so good in the first half of the run. It was like, I may as well finish it off.
The gas.
But I took my foot off the gas, but still run 2:44. I think I went 7:45 that day. And then Kona was 3 weeks later. And while physically I think it was maybe still a good decision as far as training goes, what we didn't counter was it's on the other side of the world, travel. So by the time I had a few days off before Italy, traveled to the other side of the world, dealt with jet lag, dealt with different climate. All of a sudden you get to the start line and it was like a month since you've trained, and I was fifth, which was a grind out. It was the best result I've ever had, but I finished it going, gosh, I think we got that a bit wrong. Anyway. And then of course we had, Copenhagen in 21, we had COVID then, COVID hit. So Copenhagen in 21, great race, miles in front on the bike, had Lionel quite a ways behind, 10, 11 minutes. I was like, okay, this will be fun. I just watched Kipchoge win gold at the Olympics in the marathon. I love the way he just booted away from everyone. So I'm going to go nice and slow. And then when Lionel gets within, 30, 40 seconds, I'm just going to ping it. And he caught to that, 3-4K from the end. So then I just went for it and put like 5 minutes into him. It's quite comfortable. Then Kona got cancelled.
Right.
And
So you feel like, basically the point being that you feel like you've never been able to drop the hammer and have the
Never.
race that you're capable of having.
no, like the one I've envisaged having. And then finally this year with Kona, I had the chance to train until the week before. I felt like this was going to be the moment to finally like get it all out, and then, it just didn't happen.
Right. Well, you shared with me something just before the podcast about what was actually going on that
Yeah.
I don't know if people know about that.
No, I haven't said anything because you don't want to make an excuse. And it's not an excuse. It's just, it's amazing how it was COVID, and I got sick 3-4 days before I started noticing it. I think as people know, I'm a bit of a nutter for training. I love training. And that last week for me is the worst week when you're not meant to do much. And I found myself not doing much short. It was very uncharacteristic, couldn't sleep properly. I knew there was something wrong. I was taking paracetamol and whatever. Anyway, I was like, look, if I can be on that start line, I'm going to be on there, and sure enough, I raced. I was off the pace. I was never able to get into the race. I was quite achy and it was a real, another grind. And the result was what it was. And a couple of days later, the team, sort of encouraged me to do a test because they were, we had a carer there at the race, Marco, who had sensed there was something a bit up. And sure enough, I had COVID, and I was negative a couple of days later. And I guess the thing for me was I'd been so diligent for that whole period because with the team and the bubble, you can't, go outside. Like I'd sacrifice swimming and running and stuff at races, which I was meant to be able to do as preparation for all that time to make sure I didn't get anyone else, risk getting anyone else sick or bringing it into races, and never had COVID. I'd done hundreds of tests, maybe thousands, And then when it was finally my chance, like it was finally my moment, I guess I got over there and just got so excited to be amongst it all, and I'd never had it. So I guess I was maybe a bit more susceptible. I'd trained really hard. I was probably really on the razor and it got me,
Yeah.
and afterwards you're like, initially after the race, I was like, well, there was a real tough pill to swallow. Obviously what Sam did, what the boys did, I wasn't even part of the race. I didn't even feel like I was involved, yet I was still 11th and went 8 hours. I didn't really know. I was sort of, I guess, blow cycling. Let's just get stuck into this again. Let's just focus on one thing. But then when I found out I had COVID, I was like, well, you know what? That's not that bad. And
it's encouraging actually. It's a weird thing because you go 8 hours, you break the bike course record. I mean, that's a phenomenal effort.
Yeah.
But you had to go under 8 hours to break the top 10.
Yes.
It was just an unbelievably fast field. But then to discover, even if it was a low grade version of COVID, that you were competing with COVID.
Yeah.
Once again, you've been unable to be at your best when it mattered most.
I think I said to you, like I ran with the Norwegian guys a couple of days later, and that was sort of when I figured it must have been something because Christian made a comment of how good I looked. He was running like he could barely move, and I was.
Yeah, but looks are deceiving with that guy.
True, very true. But he was just so stiff and sore, he could barely walk. And he said, you don't even look tired. And I said, well, to be honest, I just didn't feel like I could get out of first gear all day. I just wasn't in the race. I couldn't get to you guys. I couldn't be a part of it and didn't know why. And it was that night that I did the test. And so of course, I was disappointed. I really wanted to fight back quickly. I was negative quickly, which meant that I'd probably had it some time before the race. So it had probably been affecting me for longer than I realized or I'd been able to ignore, and wanted to do another race at the end of the year, Arizona, Israel, Cozumel, something, just to really have that big tank empty, And I tried to get back into training, and just every time I tried to train, I'd just get sick again. So, I was worried about chronic fatigue. Fortunately, it wasn't that. I got some advice that said, you just got to rest. It's not smart to do an Ironman with that virus. So you read to and hope that you haven't done any damage. That was the big thing for the team. They were worried about your heart and did quite extensive tests on me once I was healthy. And I seem fine. And to be honest, now I feel fantastic. I'm able to train at a level I haven't trained at in the past. And it's just hopefully that me getting COVID was the end for everyone. That was like the page turner for the rest of the world. We can all move on now.
Okay, good. Thank you for giving the world permission.
I took one for the team.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. I mean, when you say, the team was concerned or the team did this, you're talking about Ineos, which is the cycling team that you compete on behalf of. So, just to kind of create some context for people who don't know who you are, you compete for the world's greatest cycling team, the most successful, most dominant professional world tour cycling team.
Yeah.
You also compete as an individual, as an elite Ironman triathlete. And you seem to do this with it appears, relative ease and parity. Like, it's not as if one is a side hustle and one's the full-time job.
Yeah.
They're kind of equal footing. I feel like you have perhaps a greater passion for Ironman, particularly Kona and triathlon. But it's the stability of being part of this team and perhaps the camaraderie and the kind of foundation that provides you and your family and also your training to kind of, root you in something so that, you can do all these other things as well. Like, it's a complicated puzzle, I'm sure, but you're the only one who's doing this.
Yeah.
I think you're the only one who's ever done this, right? I mean, there was Talansky, but he'd stopped. He stopped, and he was a pro cyclist for Slipstream for I don't know 6 or 7 years, right?
Yeah, long time.
And became a pro Ironman.
Yeah.
But you're the only one to try to do them simultaneously.
Yeah, and
as far as I know.
Yeah, and my big goal, last year, for example, or 2021, was to win a race and win an Ironman, and I was able to do it or be part of a winning team, part of a winning, like guys winning. The first year, 2020, I was never part of a win with the team. We had a bunch of seconds, even second in the Vuelta with Richard Carapaz, like it was a great fight with Jumbo Visma, but didn't win. And then so 21, I was like, right, I want to be part of a win. And thanks to Tom Pidcock, had his first win, and I was there for that. And then obviously Bunch followed that. And then I won in Copenhagen, and then last year in 22, part of more team victories, but didn't quite, I couldn't win one myself. I was second in the one Ironman I did, aside from the World Championships in Vitoria-Gasteiz in Spain.
Right.
I got beaten by 30 seconds. But, that was, to your point, they had me actually the week before, was the Tour de France started the weekend before. They had me in Copenhagen for some VIP, to stuff, but also COVID was still quite rife, like just in case, if they had to throw me in, I was there. So I obviously wasn't there preparing for an Ironman. And then when I didn't get to race the Tour, it's like, wow, you got to qualify for Kona now. Okay, there's a race next weekend, off you go. So rest home, threw all the stuff in the car, off I went. And I almost pulled it off. I actually had a pretty good swim, good lead on the bike, and was nursing myself through the run and got caught in the final part. But I've learned that the guys are very, very good in both sports. And so I need to be more, I'm not sure what the compartmentalize, I mean, that's mental, but basically dedicate myself specifically to each, at certain times to do it properly, because otherwise I just become okay at both. And I don't want that. Like, I can go to a bike race and do my job for the team. And, G and I had this conversation in training the other day.
G being Geraint Thomas. Tour de France champion.
Yeah, he's out here training with me. And it was, if I'm on the front or, protecting the guys or helping them for 5K longer than we thought, that's great. If I'm there for 5K less, they work it out. It's not really, it's no big deal.
Make or break.
It's me that knows whether I gave it all and actually made a big difference or not, like me personally. So when I don't do a good job, if I have been, kind of doing too much running or whatever, and it's affected me, racing on the bike, it's actually a loss, because racing on the bike provides an amazing opportunity to push my body way harder than I would like to, because it's one of those sports where you just have to go as fast as the guy in front, which is something I feel can be a weapon to take back to, triathlon. And periodically I've been able to get that right over the last few years, but not consistently. And so And a lot of that has been because of this whole COVID thing with the bubble. I haven't been able to go swimming. I haven't been able to go to the hotel gym and go for a run during the race. Just a small, even just a small one, just enough to keep, as you know, with swimming.
The swimming thing has got to be tough, right? Like you're in Europe, you're doing these races. You're not, you're not going to find a pool all the time.
No, and swimming is the one you need to keep the feel for.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, just being able to get in the pool, even just at the end of the day for a kilometre or two, it would make a massive difference to having 10 days off, because otherwise you tend to go home and it's like you're starting all over again for someone like myself without a swimming background. And anyway, and so again, I was thinking though, but it's bizarre because even on a bad day, I still swim with like, Lionel or Sam Long or Kinley or these guys. And but I don't actually, that's when don't even get to train, I
know, it's insane. It's insane that you can basically, the way that I envision it, and it's probably not like this, but it's sort of like you're in Europe doing whatever you're doing with the team. And you're sort of on standby as a domestique or a super domestique. You don't always know if you're going to be enlisted to do this race or that, which makes it difficult for you to plan your race schedule with respect to triathlon. It's kind of a standby thing, right? So you're always sort of training, but not really sure what you're training for.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to scoot out and do this Ironman, and you parachute into some race after not having swum at all.
Yeah.
But somehow you're able to stay in contact with the lead group out of the water.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? I mean, the best
bunch skills. One thing you get from cycling is bunch skills.
The craziest example, maybe there's a crazier one, but the one that struck me was I get all the dates confused, but right before St. George, you're at Paris-Roubaix, right?
Yeah.
Paris-Roubaix, like the most insane, brutal one-day cycling race there is.
Yeah.
And you're, on the lead out in the cobbles, basically blazing the path for the team.
Yeah.
And really set the team up for a win.
Yeah.
And then you basically split from there and drop in on St. George.
Yeah.
And lead that race on the bike.
You
basically towed Christian the whole way and set him up for the win.
Yeah.
But the fact, you didn't even think that you were going to be doing that race, right? Because you were supposed to be doing something else for Ineos.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you weren't even really preparing for that.
Well, I actually had to go to Africa the following week. So it's like, can I fit it in or not? And I decided last minute, well, I can, so I'll go. So I came here, then I went to Namibia and actually another corporate bonding thing they wanted me to do over there. But, it's funny, like back to when I stopped, I was doing a similar role, and Peter Sagan was my teammate at Cannondale. And I guess I was 30, 31. And I was like, wow, my productive years are like, this is great. I'm a domestic, in a big team and blah, blah, blah. But I don't want to waste my productive years doing this. So that's when I moved to the US. I still had a contract, fortunately, with Cannondale, which they honored, and gave me a bit of time to, find what I wanted to do. I really wanted to work in finance. I met a bunch of different people in that field, and finally found, a place I wanted to work down in Century City with a real estate investment firm. Mosaic was just sort of starting out. And anyway, I was there for a little bit, starting to study, and Ethan, the founder of it all, he said, why would you could be in sport, do you want to go back to rowing? Do you want to go back to cycling? I was like, no, I'm really happy doing this. And I'd done a couple of triathlons for a bit of fun. And so I said, but I enjoy this. And as only an American would, he said, I used to live in Kona. He said, you can beat those guys. I used to watch that race every year. You're better than them. And I'm thinking, mate, I've done a couple of triathlons for fun. Like, only an American would say that to you.
Uh-huh.
And so I kind of, I took one seriously. It was Arizona as a pro. I said, if I can get off the bike, quicker than Jan had set the world record in Roth, the swim and bike combined, I'll think about learning to run. And anyway, it just sort of snowballed from there. I was able to do that. I just hobbled through the run. I didn't even bother training for the run for that one. It was all about the swim and the bike. I went back to Australia for a bit of a break, before I'd come back, and I thought I'd just get into finance. We got a random call from Chris Froome to do some training down there because he was holidaying. I thought, why not? And
If you're a Gen X dude like me, then skincare can feel a little indulgent, but I actually wish that I didn't wait until my 50s to take care of my skin a little bit better because, hey, it's our largest organ, it's essential to health, and it's our first line of defense against environmental aggressors. The fact is, as we age, our mitochondria generate less energy. So anything that you can do to boost these little power plants is absolutely huge. Timeline's worked it out in their nutrition products, and now they figured it out with skincare, cracking the code with this new product called MitoPure, which is a patented version of a postbiotic that they've discovered helps rejuvenate mitochondria and promotes healthy skin. It's backed by 15 years of clinical research. They've got 3 products, the day cream, the night cream, and the serum. I've been testing them and using them. I'm really enjoying it. I do think my skin looks better and it looks more refreshed. It feels more refreshed. And you should check it out. So to get you started, Timeline is offering 10% off your first order. Click the link in the description below and use the code RichRoll to claim the offer. All right, back to the show. Just so the audience is clear, let's like really establish what exactly happened here, which is essentially that you start out as a rower. You grow up. You're from Tasmania.
Yeah.
You go to the Olympics in 2004.
Yeah.
In the lightweight double scull, right?
Yeah.
Olympian.
Yeah.
Right. Pinnacle of sport for anybody.
Yeah.
Somehow you reinvent yourself as a professional cyclist, and then you spend how many years? Like a handful of years. As a pro, you bounce around between a couple teams, but you're on Cannondale Liquid Gas. Like that was like the main team you were on, right?
Yeah.
And from what I understand, there was some sort of discontentment around like, how the whole kind of like pro cycling thing operates, and you were feeling dissatisfied with that and kind of hung it up.
Yeah.
And that's where the finance thing came in.
Yeah.
So you're thinking my athletic career is over.
Yeah.
The boss says, get the fuck back out there. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And you do a couple of triathlons and you go back home and you're riding with Richie Port, one of the greatest cyclists there are. You're training with him.
Yeah.
In Tasmania.
Yeah,
in Tasmania.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to win Tour Down Under shortly thereafter, right? And and you kind of set him up for that.
Yeah.
You get this call from an old rowing coach who's now a cycling coach who's involved with Sky.
Yeah.
Who's like, come ride with Froome.
Yeah.
The guy at the moment.
He just won the Tour for the 3rd time.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you set him up for more success.
He won all 3 in a row after he started training with me. Yeah.
You're like the go-to guy. Like if you want to win a Grand Tour, you got to call up Cam because he's the secret weapon.
Yeah.
So now it's Port, it's Froome.
Yeah.
And now it's Geraint.
Yeah.
And these are the top guys in the world. And these guys choose to train with you. You're the guy they want to train with.
Yeah.
So the question is like, what is it about you? Why is it that they want to spend, all these hours, all this time? Like what are you contributing to those guys? And what are you getting out of that is nourishing for you, but also nourishing for them and creating all of this success?
Well, I guess the big thing is we're not competitors. I've always been friends with a bunch of guys from other sports, like Jimmy Johnson, for example, NASCAR. I've learned so much from him, and he asked me so many questions. I guess because it's not confrontational. He knows I'm not going to get in a car, or I might get in a car, but I'm not going to drive as fast as him. Likely, I know he's not going to do an Ironman as quick as I can. And the same with these guys, they're training for something completely different, but I guess the endurance element, there's a company part, I've got a lot of stories, so I can fill in a lot of blank time. So I think the guys enjoy that. But I've always been very good at training, and that was part of why I quit the first time, because I could train, I know, like the best in the world. And I know now because I'm still training with those guys. But I could never race like that. I didn't figure out the sport. I just didn't know how to apply that.
You were training to train just because you like training.
I love training. I love exercising. I call myself a professional exerciser. And so, that was the thing. I went and trained with Froome there. It was obvious that I still had a bit under the hood. So then they were like, listen, you want to come back to cycling? I said, no, I'm interested in triathlon. Okay, we'll support you with that. So, obviously spent some time with Froome in 17, then 18, Geraint wants to win the Tour, and he was thinking about coming to LA because I'd told him during camps the previous year how great it is here.
Yeah.
So the team said, Cameron, can you go out and train with him? So, sure enough, fast forward, he wins the Tour that year, and it was just...
You should get like bonused for that.
You know what? The thing is, and this is what Chris said to me, in 17, he just won the Tour. And in between the Tour and the Vuelta, which he obviously won as well, we were in Chatel training, and we'd had a great camp. And at the end of that, I had one last crack at qualifying for Kona. That was in Sweden the following weekend after we finished that little camp. And the last thing he said, he said, you don't have to do anything more than you're capable of. Just believe in yourself, mate. Like, you belong at this level. And so training with these guys day in, day out, you wonder why I think I can just you'd think I could do that going to, I'm not sure what's a great example, but maybe the Malibu Tri or, the El Segundo local triathlon. Like, it's one thing to do what I do and then on the bike and then go and jump into that. But I think, oh yeah, okay, I'll go and race Roubaix and then I'll go to the World Championships. And I don't even think about it because I'm surrounded by these guys,
right?
At this level.
The best
of the best. And I've really never known any different. It was the same in every sport that I've done. I've always been surrounded by the best guys. And and I guess it's nice that I've finally found a sport that I'm competitive at and it is all about me. And if I think about sort of what's happened in the past few years with the team, like you said, there's no schedule. And I don't think that's worked as well as we thought, because the idea of me coming back to the team was I'd be at a training camp with the guys. I'd be maybe stronger than a lot of the guys on the camp. And it's like, God, wish we could just take Cameron, And I'm like, well, I'm happy doing triathlon, blah, blah, blah. Dave eventually said, listen, we'd really like you to be on standby. And I thought, well, that sounds great. But
Dave Brailsford,
the team manager.
Right.
But the problem sort of that eventuated the last few years was then I was all of a sudden getting called into everything because it's like, oh, Cameron's free, is he? Oh, we'll take him. Oh, Cameron's at home. Oh, great. Well, he can come and do this. And all of a sudden I don't get to train properly. I kind of, as I said, I go home and I'm restarting my swimming, I'm restarting my running. There's no real consistency of blocks. So to be brutally honest, the last couple of years, I haven't really felt like I've been able to put the work in or perform at the level I've wanted to in either sport. It sort of hasn't been quite like it used to be, and so now the team have said, right, what are we going to do better this year? And they're going to limit my racing ideally to one race a month. So I get the time to train, train with the guys, push myself, get called into a race to fill a gap and whatever. And hopefully finally get to marry these two, sports. Because I love doing what I do now with the guys, but I think that's because I get to go and do my own thing.
Right.
I get to go
all that all the time.
The pressure, like Kona, regardless of why I didn't perform, it's all on you, and that there's nothing that can help you in that feeling. You are all alone, if it's great. You get to feel all that. When things go, I just now feel like I almost wished I wasn't on the team because a lot of it was because I felt like I let so many people down. I did what I could, but I felt like I let all these people down. I felt horrible. And now, I wouldn't want that all the time. Like, to be a leader in cycling and then have to go and do that.
Yeah.
That would be pretty intense.
Well,
so it's a nice balance.
You answered the question that I had, which is, whether you, in the back of your mind, you think, maybe I should let go of the pro cycling thing. And if I just went all in on triathlon and could get those consistent blocks in with the swimming and the running and give it the focus that it deserves, you could, how much better could you be? Yeah. Right. You must think about that.
I do, but I also, in my mind, I picture doing it the way I'm doing it. I just haven't had a chance to do it. I'm going to the UAE next week and I know there's swimming pools at every hotel. We stay on the water a lot of the days. So, the way I see it is, great, I get to race at the highest level of cycling. I'm going to be physically, cardiovascularly pushed. I just need to go and find some water to flop around in for 30 minutes just to keep the motor pattern, to then apply that fitness to swimming, the week after when I go home. There'll be a treadmill. I'll be able to go for a run. It's like a 1 week training camp with a cycling focus. And then when I go home, I can switch it back into, and honestly, the level of pro cycling now it's like Ironman. It is so high.
Yeah.
People say, what's the biggest difference when you came back? And you got to remember, I didn't race for 6 years until they convinced me to go back again. And things changed a lot. First thing that was funny was I just had cycling socks on, regular cotton, whatever, because that's what you always wore. I got to the start line of my first race and I looked around. Everyone has Aero socks on.
Mhm.
Every single person on every single team. And I thought, wow, that's different. That's already a change.
Yeah, and their cycling is they're sticklers for their etiquette when it comes to kit.
Yes. Yeah. So I definitely stood out. But the one back in the old days, it was much more controlled. It was more of a gentleman's agreement a lot of days. So there was a lot of days that were pretty cruisy.
So that's just like base training all the time.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And I used to, you chat away to your mates you hadn't seen. I was on an Italian team, so you love seeing Aussies and whatever. I don't talk to a single person when I'm racing now. It's so intense. I mean, back in those days, it was like, right, we all take it easy to the feed zone. We all get some food in the tank, and then we race the last half of the race or the last third, and but now it can kick off at any moment. A bit like triathlon. Someone can make the break at any moment, and you don't know if they're going to come back. With the likes of Wout van Aert, Van der Poel. I mean, they just have, and Sagan, started to, but he was sort of on his own tangent. Now there's a bunch of guys like that, and the races are just so unpredictable and exciting.
Well, I heard these stories. I don't know if they're true. Tell me if they're not. That in the midst of stage races, like after a stage, you would go running in the middle of these races, and then on one day classics, you would like work out after the race.
Yes, yeah, no, I have. I mean, the other day I raced in Australia, and we finished the race, and I put my shoes on. It was 22K back to the hotel, so I ran back.
And what are your teammates?
Yeah,
what did they make about?
They really scratched their head, And it's not that I've saved energy or, I'm not tired. Of course I'm tired, but I'm also conditioned to do that. And it's also, and another thing that I'm really proud of is, and not for me, but the respect that the guys have for the sport now. I think they respect me, for my role in the team and even in the sport. I know that other teams, other riders, they give me space. They respect me in the peloton. And they now talk to me about, the Norwegian guys, about Laylo, about the women, Lucy. I mean, they ask me questions, like they always thought, oh, the triathletes, they're just okay at everything. They're like, well, wait a minute. No, because this guy just led us onto the cobbles in Roubaix and most of the field's already been dropped. And then he goes to an Ironman and he's sort of one of the best, but he's not. Exactly. Yeah. He's not like, head and shoulders above anyone. And these guys then get off and run too, so like an appreciation for the sport of Ironman.
That's a huge shift.
It is, because you've had people like, you mentioned Andrew Talansky. I mean, he tried to do it and came in. I mean, he never even qualified for Kona, never even looked like qualifying for Kona, I mean, and it's not because Andrew is not a phenomenal athlete, but I mean, G and I were talking about this as well the other day. G said, yeah, well, maybe you are actually good at this sport. It's not that the sport's easy.
That's funny. Well, what's interesting is the parallels between what Brailsford has done with British Cycling, Team Sky, and Ineos looks very similar to what Olav is doing in Norway.
Yeah.
By, really kind of like engineering the sport to a whole new level through data and testing and Brailsford's whole thing of marginal, what is it called? Like
marginal gains.
Yeah, marginal gains. And like what do the guys think of that? I know it gets mocked and all of that, but like he really did, revolutionize British cycling and created the most, dominant team in recent memory.
Yeah, we talked about that at the camp about, creating a team, like a great team. The book Good to Great. It's like, it's a great team. And people say, oh, how do we? And it's like, well, it already is, because it's not only, there was whatever the 8 tour wins, but it was, or 7, I can't, a lot. But there were 4 different guys.
Yeah.
And also you plug someone like me in there. Okay, I'm not winning the tour, but I'm having success in another sport. Like, that to me is a great organization. I mean, and if I look at it from my perspective, one of the biggest things was when I was getting supported just in Ironman, how hard all the staff work. I go to a camp and, everything's there, and you just, that culture, like the way Dave chooses the people to work there, chooses the riders, everyone's working their backside off. And that filters through to your training. You know, you go out and train, you're like, well, I'm not going to sandbag today because I can see all these other guys, you know, Tim Kerrison, the coach, like our version of Olaf, like he's there every day following us, you know,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, there's just a commitment to excellence across the board.
Exactly.
So you feel compelled to show up for that.
yeah. And back in the marginal gains was not like the Norwegian, like the science so much, you know, there was no lactate testing or no VO2 testing. We actually never do any of that. And I will say, like, unless you know what you're doing, don't do it. You're better off working hard. But it was like chefs. It was, you know, mattresses, pillow, you know, things to help you sleep, you know, investing heavily in massage therapy, you know, the best carers, etc. But also I think listening to him talk and then comparing it to Tim, like the way that he kind of, he's close, you know, as in it's like, you know, like a fan, you know, really keeps an eye on them, very much a part of their lives, but obviously needs to keep a level of to be able to tell them what to do. And that is identical to Tim Kerrison. You know, like he was always there. He's been a part of all our lives. Like we've all got married, we've all had kids, you know, like he's been, you know, a part of all that. Yet when the time comes, he knows when to say, you got to go and do this, you know, or come down on you or whatever else. And also that most people don't want all those good guys challenging them. You know, I mean, the good guys want to be, but he created that environment where it was normal for like, you know, Geraint or Froome or Richie Porte to be like proving they're stronger than each other.
Right.
Yet
Nobody's king for more than a day. Like nobody's resting on, like normally, typically, historically in pro cycling, like if you won the Tour or, you know, you can be expected to be the leader the following year. And my sense is that that's not really the case.
No,
you know,
no.
And perhaps, you know, that must have caused issues or friction with, you know, Froome and Geraint at times and like not knowing who is the team leader and all of that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely it did. I mean, obviously there was Bradley and Chris, which was a big one. And then obviously when Geraint won, I mean, Froome was peeved, you know, like he
and even this year for Geraint, like not sort of, it just feels like he's not being accorded the respect on some level.
Yeah. I mean, it's not
exactly, you know,
it's not
what he's
even
done. I mean, he just got third.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's not going to race the Tour this year.
No, he's off to the Giro. Yeah. So, I mean, partly a bit of that might be his choice, but again, it does come down to, well, okay, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and see how we're going to try and win it, you know, and in any other team, performance would be ruthless. Wow, you got third, right? Okay, that's built on that, you know, try and get you back to the top.
So it's a tension between, you know, that kind of like ruthlessness that comes with, performing at just, you know, the absolute next level of everything.
Yeah.
But also a big part of the success has to be the esprit de corps, like creating kind of a, you know, that team unity. I feel like that's a role that you play and probably why, you know, a big part of why they want you around. Like, you're a great exerciser or whatever, and you're a great super domestique, but